Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show, a member of the Pod Bros Podcast Network. Don't forget to go to podbros.com. Click on some of the other podcasts you might like, although the only podcast you really need to listen to is Big Jiu-Jitsu. That's on there. And don't forget to go to bigjujitsu.com, buy a t-shirt, buy a patch, click on the Amazon banner so that my wife doesn't divorce me because I spend too much money hosting a podcast. I need more money, so please give me money. I'm Rob the Lord Humongous, and I'm joined by our new co-host, Devon Martinez. How's it going again, Devon?
What's going on, guys?
Oh, man. 2 in a row. Holy fuck. So you've beat the spread, man. You're in.
I've been tenured pretty much.
Tenured. That's practically. You can like request whatever the fuck you want at this point, and you'll get it almost. So yeah, you're no longer a guest, so you can't hold that title of the guy who's been on the podcast the most. So now we have Trevor Hayes as the reigning champ of most appearances on this podcast. So today, what we're doing is something kind of cool. So we have the guys from the Jiu-Jitsu After Dark podcast. More specifically, we have one guy from the Jiu-Jitsu After Dark podcast today. John is joining us. Hopefully, Chris will be joining us here in a bit. But John, thanks for being on the show today, man.
Yeah, so since this is my third time on the podcast, does that make me your co-host today?
Fuck, I forgot that you've been on 3 times. Now, actually, in lengthwise, I think you've been on the podcast the longest, even including like our intern. You've beaten out our intern just for length.
Well, that's only because that last podcast went 3 fucking hours.
That was a mistake. That was like a huge mistake, too, because Josh and I kept going after I think after you left and after Chris passed out. Maybe.
Oh, I can't. I'm amazed that he was awake as long as he was.
Oh, he was a champ. He was fucking killing it with drinking. Like on the video feed, if you saw it, he was just had his head like cover in his arms, and he would, when we asked him a question, he would lift his head up, look at the mic, say something, and then put his head back down.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on the podcast. Yeah, Chris should be joining us pretty soon. For those of you, for those of your listeners who don't know, Chris is a firefighter and an EMT, and he literally got called out to a call just like a minute before we were going to start recording. So hopefully he's going to be able to jump on in the next 10 minutes or so.
Hope so, man, because like. You're pretty much the only guy from the Jiu-Jitsu After. Well, I mean, there's only 2 of you, so I can't really say like, oh, you're the only guy who's been on here. But
there's only ever been 2 of us.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like the Big Jiu-Jitsu
secrets with you.
Yeah, I'm
You're
like
already straight. He's going to fight fires and stuff. Coming on this show, obviously, he's got everything mixed up.
Oh no, he knows exactly what he's doing. Chris lives a good life. Don't even let Chris tell you what he does during his off hours. It makes me mad.
No, I heard that last episode. He talked about, what was it, getting that crazy ice cream sandwich. I was driving to work listening to that shit, getting pissed off. I think it was, I was like, fucker, man. This guy is talking about smoking cigars.
Yeah, he was talking about it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. He was smoking a cigar and drinking some 16-year-old scotch on a patio somewhere.
Oh, my God.
Well, that's practically what you do, Devon, isn't it?
That's basically what I do. I mean, he's on the internet and trolling in there, and that's pretty much the same thing. He's fighting fires, I'm trolling. We pretty much live the same life.
The difference is, though, on our podcast, I was literally saying there's going to be someone driving to work who's just going to be pissed listening to Chris's life. And guess what? There's a guy all the way across the world listening, thinking, that son of a bitch.
Yeah, he's talking about... I think what made me mad is like, you were like, they let you smoke in there? He's like, yeah, I was out on the patio, and it was something along the lines of like, the guy let him do it anyways, and it's like a fight out here to really do anything. I have to get 50 feet away from all the buildings if I want to smoke a cigar, so I just kind of don't.
You're in Germany. They don't let you just smoke weed on the base?
Nah, man, there's still rules I got to follow, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'll be high as shit all the time. Allegedly. Throw that Allegedly. So, John, I honestly don't think we've ever gotten your story of how you got started in jiu-jitsu. Like, you pretty much just show up, drink, and then talk shit. Like, not talk shit, but talk about jiu-jitsu.
That sucks. I'm sober today. I'm actually going to have to provide content.
So, John, why don't you just tell us how you got started? Like, how did this whole thing happen?
What aspect? Like, how did I end up here?
Well, I mean, like we know that your parents like had sex at some point and you were, born, but
Allegedly. Don't
allegedly.
don't make me think about that.
Okay, I'm very sorry. But how about jujitsu? How did you get started in jujitsu and then go into how did you get started podcasting?
Sure. Well, it started out kind of easily enough. I was a white kid from the suburbs, so I was unnecessarily mad about life.
Yep.
Nothing to be mad about, but I really needed to punch something. So when I was in college, I found a gym that taught Muay Thai, and I started training Muay Thai. Mainly because of Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. The vast majority being that it was Van Damme. So what the hell? Kickboxer I thought was actually like Bible truth for Muay Thai. I learned really really quickly that that wasn't the case. And then from there I started doing some boxing too. And I met my wife and I fell out of combat sports just because you fall in love and all of a sudden and just started to go back for my master's degree. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be getting kicked in the head anymore. I mean, I was okay. I wasn't great. I was never going to be the success at combat sports anyway. So, but it stuck with me. Got a desk job, working 50 hours a week in a cube and progressively just getting madder and madder. And by like Friday, I would come home and I would just want to sit on the couch and drink a beer, and I wouldn't want my wife to talk to me. I wouldn't want to go out. I didn't want to do anything.
Right.
So I'm like, you know what? I still like there was still something inside me. It was like that whole that like Rocky Balboa. Like I think I got something inside me sort of line, except coming from a guy who was 27 years old. And I thought I wanted to start training and preparing to fight MMA because at the time I'd been writing for a bunch of MMA sites. I started out like with Bleacher Report and websites like that. Bleacher Report before Bleacher Report was big because I didn't think that was going to go anywhere, so I stopped writing for them.
Oh,
So
damn.
one of my many smart career choices. Um, so I started training Brazil, or I went to the big gym, around here, like where Brock Lesnar trained and all the stuff like that. And I went in thinking, well, I got stand up, whatever. Like I genuinely had no concept of a ground game whatsoever. Even when I watched UFC, I was definitely still the guy who would watch. Like I like Tito Ortiz and Frank Shamrock and guys like that, but I didn't like the ground. I didn't understand it.
Right.
It wasn't. I wasn't the guy who watched Hoist Gracie and said, "Wow, look at that little guy who's submitting everybody." I was literally like, I don't give a shit. I don't understand what's happening. I want them to stand and punch each other in the head. I wanted to see Tank Abbott. I wanted to see Vitor Belfort. I wanted to see Vanderlei Silva back then. So I started training. I ended up finding a gym after it became painfully obvious that I really didn't fucking know shit. And I started training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And it was one of those things. It wasn't the first class, but it was like the second or third class where something clicked. And all of a sudden I was like, I couldn't believe that I had just done something. It was something silly. It was like a side control past the mount or something.
Ooh.
It wasn't even a submission. I didn't get my first tap. It wasn't anything like that. And all of a sudden I was just like, wow, this is really cool. But I thought gi was stupid. It was ridiculous. There was no point in training gi because it doesn't apply to MMA. So anytime we were doing open roll, I'd take my gi off, and I found another gym that had a bunch of it was a big grind house, but it was really really tough local guys taught by a former champion, a former UFC champion actually, and but it was another one of those things where I saw some of these guys training and they were just like crazy mad dog beat the fucking shit out of each other. Like they would leave training more injured than they'd ever leave a fight. It was like the old like shoot a box mentality sort of thing.
Yeah, the good stuff. Well, maybe not the good stuff, but
Well, it was good and bad. Like it was good because it made me realize I don't want this. Like I didn't want it bad enough to train the way they trained. Now I could have gone to a gym that was easier and maybe would have coddled me a little bit, and then like, okay, we'll set up a fight, and then I would have got smoked.
no. Actually, hold on one second, Devin. We're getting a shitload of feedback, man.
Is it too much feedback right now?
Yeah, a ton of it. I'll just mute you while John's talking, and then just when you want to say something, unmute yourself. I think that actually will work out. Is that cool with you?
No, that works out. That's cool with me. I mean, if you don't mind doing that, that's cool.
Nah, not at all. Okay, so nah, man, I don't think you're boring anybody with your story,
Well,
dude.
I don't know because I feel like if the problem is it's like any other story. Like you tell a story a few times, and then you could be telling a brand new audience of people, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Am I just saying the same information over and over again?"
Well, I mean,
So I
like,
don't. Maybe it's boring to me because I lived it.
well, yeah, I mean, like you'd be like, oh well, then I fought Vanderlei Silva, and then I knocked his ass out. Like, and then to like people like that, it could be very boring, like you say. But for our listeners, you've been on the show now 3 times, reigning champ, and they don't know what you do. Like, oh, there's just this brown belt who showed up and got drunk on the podcast, and
You
you
guys
know,
don't even know if I'm a brown belt.
I think I said you were a brown belt at one point. Pretty sure because I wanted to give you a
I know,
proper
but you don't know.
introduction.
I could say I'm a brown belt.
Well, I'm not going to go looking for you because
It was just something I was thinking about earlier that, I mean, for all people, I mean, enough people know, like, it sounds really stupid to say, enough people know that I'm a brown belt, but it'd be so, it's really easy for people to pose as something they're not. I am a brown belt. I have been doing this for 9 years. I have been a brown belt for almost 2 years now. Um, but I don't know. As far as the journey is concerned, I mean, to me, the whole jujitsu saves lives or jujitsu saved my life, stuff like that. That is it for me. It just isn't that dramatic. Jujitsu saved me from a mundane life that I would have always wondered what could have been, what could I have done. And that's not to say that I'm like some people who they get a hold of jujitsu and they end up being like Christian from the BJJ Globetrotters and they travel the world and they set up these amazing camps or they train with the best guys in the world at the biggest gyms in the world or anything like that. But for me, what it did more than anything is it helped to give me a voice. And I've tried to be tried to be a writer for a really long time. So my voice was, through the written word as much as anybody ever wanted to read it. But once it was around the time I got my purple belt that I started to get to know some of the other, like the gym owners in the area. And it was just kind of a really cool thing. Like something clicked. Like it's a cool thing to suddenly be known by another gym owner, like just on good terms. Just like you go to local tournaments or whatever, and they know your name, and you can say hi to them, and they're higher ranked or they've been around longer. It's a cool feeling to suddenly feel like you're a part of the community. And one day I was at the gym and I had heard people talking about another gym, a separate gym. It was the gym I actually started at. And they were saying, yeah, I heard they do this and this there or whatever. And I was like, they don't do that at all. Like, that's not what it's like. And there was this thing inside me that kind of clicked. Like, I'm in Minnesota. Even here in Minnesota, like, jujitsu is still pretty new and it's still a relatively small community and it's getting a lot better. But I mean, when I started out, I think there was like 6 black belts in the state.
wow.
And there was a lot people didn't know, and there was a lot of talking behind each other's backs, and just a lot of shitty practices going on. And I decided that what I wanted to do is I wanted to go around to all the local gyms and just write an article about them. I had no affiliation with them. I just wanted to write an article. This is what this gym is like. I have no affiliation. I have nothing to gain from it. All I want to do is I want to go in and roll, and I want to tell people what I saw as someone who's got nothing to gain from it. So I started writing my original website, Choking Minnesota, for that purpose. And that ended up kind of snowballing, and I got a bunch of access to some MMA events and things like that. And it was just a cool thing. Like it's not anything as extreme as to say it gave me purpose, because it doesn't. My wife and my children and life itself, it gives me purpose. But the feeling you get from something to know I don't have to ever ask what if. Like I'm not going to have a day where I look back and say, what if I had tried? Like, what if I had taken the extra step? What if I had just given it a shot and put myself out there, knowing that I don't have to look back and say, what if I did, because I tried. And from there, I really got into podcasts. I'd never listened to one until like 2 years ago, and I started with Joe Rogan, like a lot of people, and then Bill Burr and like Adam Carolla, and then I got into like the Nerdist, and I was listening to this podcast with I don't know if you ever watch Kevin Smith movies.
I do. I do.
Yeah, and you know, hit or miss, whatever. I heard an interview with him on the Nerdist, and he was talking about how. Did you see his movie Tusk?
I have not.
It's weird, but it all came from his podcast. Like it was literally him and his friend, who's his producer, sitting around joking about this article that they saw in the newspaper, and it so intrigued him that he ended up making a movie, and he never thought he was going to make movies again. And it's a brilliant episode. If anyone listening to this ever like wanted to listen to the Nerdist is an amazing non-sport related podcast. Like it's incredibly well done. Chris Hardwick's really effing good. And and he was just talking about just go out there and do it. Like sit around with your friends and bullshit and just talk and laugh and have fun because who knows what'll happen from it. And that seed planted in me, and a few months later I think it was around the time I got my brown belt. I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try doing a podcast because why not, I've got something to say. And I thought I still don't have anything to say 2 years later, but I was like, why not give it a shot, because it's an interesting medium. And so I started doing it, and I did it by myself for about 4 months, and it's fucking hard to do a podcast solo, um, especially jujitsu, because then it ends up being you just saying your opinions and stuff over and over. It's so much easier to feed off of somebody. And I ended up meeting Chris through that, and you know, as far as Jiujitsu After Dark is concerned, the rest is history. You know, for a while we did it once every week. We dropped back to once every 2 weeks because I've been having some family stuff going on, and it's tough. But we have a surprisingly loyal fan base. It always amazes me, and I'm sure you see this too. And I've seen you post your posts on Facebook, and you guys have a way bigger fucking presence on Facebook than we do. But like you see pictures, like I just saw the picture of sorry, what was your last guest? Because there's a picture of him with the kid.
Oh,
Uh,
Brad Acosta.
yeah, Acosta. Thank you. The picture of him with one of the kids in his kids class with a big jujitsu patch on his pants, and you can sit there and say, "That's my podcast." Like that reached somebody. Like this thing that I always wanted to try doing, it reaches people. And you do it for fun, and it costs you money because you have hosting fees and your website fees and everything else, and you put it out there for free, but you're creating something and you're enjoying it. And like it's as silly and hallmark as it sounds, is it's a gift that we give ourselves. That if you don't really like to podcast, it's a really stupid thing to do, because you're putting yourself out there for free for people to say, God, those guys suck. You know, because it's so easy. There's so many podcasts out there, and you know, you hang around Reddit BJJ or whatever, and someone will post, "Oh, what's a good podcast?" And you know, the usual names usually pop up, like BJJ Brick or back open when Open Mat Radio is still regularly going, and whatever. But it's so easy for anyone to be like, for you to put yourself out there like this, because people just hear your voice. They never roll with you. They never actually meet you, and you're putting yourself out there for just, and to know that you entertain people sometimes, that's a pretty fucking cool thing. So the fact that I even got here, it's only because of jujitsu. Like there is nothing else that would have driven me in this direction, because it's just a culmination of events that suddenly I'm like, I'm doing something that I never would have done otherwise. I would have sat in an office job and probably been miserable and probably wondered, what could I have done? And seen all these people around me trying. And I'd have been bitter. I'd have been one of those trolls on the internet. Like, oh, those guys suck, just because I'm mad that I didn't do it myself. But I'm way more lenient towards everything because I do try it myself. And I know how hard it is, you know, because I know we do shows where sometimes I'm like, oh shit, you only do one of these a week, but that was a rough 50 minutes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
you want to turn out something good. You want to be entertaining, whether it's for free or not, because people are taking the chance, their commute during work, their weekends, they're mowing the lawn, whatever, to listen to you talk and entertain them. So I don't know, it's a really cool opportunity, but it's a risk reward type situation. But jujitsu helps you handle a lot of things.
It does. I was actually having this conversation with. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Devin. You got something?
No, I could really relate to what you're saying, and I think it's the same way I could relate to Rob and these guys. The statement you made right at the beginning when you said jujitsu didn't in other words, saved my life, and it wasn't that dramatic. It just kept you from having a mundane life, and it opened up these other doors. I think that is what a lot of people are actually thinking. They don't like to say it because it won't put them in the cool crowd. But I think that's the story of every single average practitioner's jujitsu life, right? It just opened up doors. It allows you to network with other people. I think you worded it really well because I think a lot of people feel that way. They just don't like saying it because they don't want to come off as just a casual jujitsu person. When really that's fine. That's okay. You know what I mean? And look at what you are saying now that you are semi-casual with it, but you have all these other opportunities from. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's just it is very much, yeah, like you said, I'm sure that is the case, is that people want, because we love to talk in extremes in life and in jujitsu about the BJJ lifestyle and talking these absolutes and trying to find these things where, well, and I've seen these arguments. I see these arguments over and over again, talking about, well, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu isn't Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or like people try and label what we do, and they try and define it, and they try and categorize it, and they try and separate it, like we do these different things. And yes, the things that we do are different, but it's still a common ground. Like, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be us or them. You can be the casual person who walks in on the mats and says, you know what, I just really fucking love doing jujitsu. Like, I have a hard day at work. I come here and I relax and I'm a better person for it. And then there can be those people who are, I train 3 fucking times a day. My whole world is on, like, I'm getting ready for Mundial, like about what he um about what Orlando Sanchez actually went through on his road to Abu Dhabi. I had no idea that he was an overweight junkie before, finding jujitsu and finding ADCC. I thought all that was pretty fucking amazing. And for him, sounds like jujitsu really saved his life. I mean, I'm a I'm a white guy from the suburbs. It didn't save me, but it makes me really goddamn happy.
Yeah, I think for me, like it kind of drives me nuts too of the whole. Oh wow, I'm muted. Hold on, I'm sorry.
Rob, you're muted.
I'm not muted anymore. That's for damn sure. But so pretty much what I'm kind of with you on that. The whole jujitsu saved my life thing, the BJJ lifestyle thing. Like it's really easy to say like, oh hey, I live the BJJ lifestyle. Jiu-Jitsu saved my life. And we had an interview with Habinho. He's a checkmat black belt. He was like, nobody really lives the Jiu-Jitsu lifestyle sometimes where it's you train 3 times a day and you're fucked up constantly and you're hating life because you have to diet all the time. You can't go out and paddleboard when you want because there's cardio you have to do. And I think it's kind of like romanticized almost to be like I I give myself like this whole I'm a big warrior. I do jujitsu 8 hours a day, like bullshit speech. No, I don't do that myself. I'm saying the general you, but it seems to be a romanticized thing. Like either you, like you said, you're either all in or all out. Either you do jujitsu, the BJJ lifestyle, where you're sitting at your office job, like with a gi, just working on your grips, or you're not doing jujitsu at all. There's no middle ground, and it seems like nobody is comfortable being in that middle.
I definitely, I ran into that a lot with trying to be a writer and getting my master's degree and everything else. And there are these people who are like, oh, I want to go on these writers getaways and total immersion and write for 12 hours a day. And they have these romanticized versions of Hemingway sitting on the beach, like drinking rum and writing these beautiful lines of prose. And I was the guy sitting in class that said, Hemingway put a fucking shotgun in his mouth. Like, your romanticized idea of how this is, you're looking at a small sin. Sure. Do I want to put a gun to my head when I turn 65? No. Like, I don't want to be a raging alcoholic, psychotic whose family hates him. Like, and to say you want to live, yeah, like you want to live the BJJ lifestyle. I remember one thing that I was at a Pedro Sauer seminar years back, and one of the things that I'll always remember, and this is something that that it was one of those moments. I think everybody has those moments in jujitsu where something clicks, where you remember something someone said that made this big difference to you. And Pedro Sauer, he's standing there and he points at his coral belt and he goes, "You know how I got this?" He said, "I survived." Because that's it. Like, to get a coral belt, you just have to make it, what is it, 36 years or whatever?
Shit.
36 years after you get your black belt. It's not, he didn't pass any additional tests. He just didn't break. His body wasn't so broken down that he had to stop. He said, look at world champions from 10, 15 years ago. How many of them are still around? You can't keep it up. You break your body in half. And especially these days, who knows how many guys are juicing or on some sort of performance enhancement that their bodies are just going to shut down. Like, you break yourself in half for a gold medal and no prize money. Like, that's a pretty crazy fucking lifestyle, and that's a crazy goal. And if that's your path, fine, more power to you. It's not mine though. And if that's the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, I am fine being labeled a weekend warrior, but I fucking want to be a survivor.
Yeah, my goal is to be like Helio, just, my old ass walking around and then doing jujitsu, just get on the mat moving around. Like, should I get juiced, like, out of my mind? I thought about it. It'd be kind of cool. Like, I've always wanted to be Bane from fucking Batman. Like, that's my thing. But
Yeah, but then some chick in a mask would just shoot you in the chest with a missile.
that's horse shit. Because, like, Bane should have been able to, like, catch it or something. I don't know. Like,
That was like the most anticlimactic ending for any villain in movie history.
yeah, the guy that's unstoppable, fucking Batman gets, his back, like, herniated disc because he picks him up and does the backbreaker on him. And he's like,
And all of a sudden, a motorcycle drives up from behind them when no one hears and shoots him with a fucking missile.
yeah, wasn't too happy with that. So,
They just ran out of ideas.
Dude, it's funny when you were saying that earlier about all those people that they're kind of doing it for like pretty much nothing in the gold medal, isn't it? It's weird that people are seeking out this like false sense of glory at the end of the road that's so minimal, and then they're gonna go compete like a week later. You know what I mean? Because this is, at least from my own experience, and maybe I'm gonna sound like the ignorant, stupid guy in his 20s that just has youth on his side, but really there's a lot of guys that go out there and compete and will go on these little video blogs and make it look like they're training hard when really, they're out partying doing the same thing as any other dude. They just, I don't know, like you said, maybe on the juice or maybe young like me. I don't know, but I think that's a part of like the I don't know, douchiness of the package that's being presented today as like what it like jujitsu is when that's not really what it is. I don't know if that's even making any sense.
It absolutely is, and it's a culture that we create for ourselves inside every single gym and every single affiliation. That there are some gyms that you'll go to, they'll just be totally laid back, chill. Like, some guys will flow roll, some guys will be a little more focused on competition, but even those guys will know how to, like, just pull things back and they'll be fine. But then there's some gyms that you're going to go to that are 100% competition. We're getting ready for Atlanta IBJJF. We're getting ready for Chicago. We're getting ready for New York, wherever. And it's grind, 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 hard, hard, hard. And if you're not a part of that group, you feel like you're on the outside. And then there's some old school gyms where it's not even about the competition, but they will grind the fucking shit out of you. Like, I remember there was a guy came in, he was a white belt from, I don't remember where he was. I think it was like North Carolina, South Carolina. And he was like a 5-year white belt. And the reason he said he was a 5-year white belt is he never wanted to show up for promotion ceremonies because he said they did the gauntlet. He's like, I don't want to fucking get whipped for a stripe or for a belt or whatever. So he would just show up to roll. And he came into our class and he did the class, and afterwards we were kind of rolling afterwards, and he paired up with one of our black belts, really good black belt. But the black belt walked or was like, okay, well, I'm against the white belt. He kind of swept him a little and kind of set some stuff up and was just kind of chill, like he doesn't have to prove anything. And afterwards he's like, I've never rolled with a black belt that didn't try and kill me. And it's like, that fucking hurts to hear to me. Like, I get it if you're getting ready for a competition and you tell a guy, hey, I'm going to roll hard, I need to get ready, whatever. But to foster that kind of culture, I'm not saying you need to baby white belts. Believe me, I don't think that's the answer. But you don't need to destroy each other either. Like, it's not always a pissing match. And like, all these people, like, people always wonder why there's this big drop off rate in jujitsu. And it's a lot of reasons. One, I think there's a lot of people who will go to a gym, not like what they see, and assume all jujitsu is like that. And it's not. I've been to a lot of gyms, and I know a lot of those gyms I don't really want to train at. Not that they're bad gyms, they're just not for me. They don't teach the style that stylistically they don't mesh up well. Maybe their student base, like if it's a lot of smaller guys, I might not necessarily want to roll with them. If it's just a bunch of huge 220 ultra heavyweight fuckers, I don't want to train with them because I don't want to be battling for my life every time I roll and be just broken in half in the morning. But we just have jujitsu. Like I said before, people want to label 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu or Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or whatever. How can we stop at 3 labels when every single gym you go to is different jiu-jitsu? It's all different. It's a different culture. It's a different language. Some people call it a keylok. Some people call it a kimura. Some people call it a monkey grip. Some people call it a mechanic grip. Like, there's all this different terminology and knowledge and personality, and that we shouldn't be fucking arguing about this stuff. We should be like, hey, you like jiu-jitsu? Me too. That's the end of it. Or, hey, you like going for a submission? Let's bring catch wrestlers in too. I don't know why there's this big fucking feud with catch wrestling. That doesn't make any sense to me either. Who gives a shit? Like, we don't need to be a culture that is us or them. Like, it can be everybody because everybody has their own path, and we're not going to get better by driving people away. Like, people are going to quit jiu-jitsu regardless. It doesn't make any difference. But we don't need to make it harder for ourselves.
No, I mean there was actually before I even came home today because it's 3:50 a.m. right now, so it's kind of it was a few hours ago, but had a conversation with one of my students. It was kind of the same thing. He said, "So what's the criteria to get a stripe?" I said, "It's different for everybody, man." He's like, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "So you want me to compare you to somebody else who wants to do this for self-defense, to somebody else who wants to compete, to somebody else who wants to do MMA? I don't know what your reason is. Like, we haven't really talked about it. Like, you show up, you do good, but it's unfair for me to put like this stipulation. Like, if I say, hey, you want to get your second stripe, gotta win a tournament. That's what you need. You need to win a tournament." And this guy, all he's concerned about is losing weight and possibly learn how to protect himself and his family. That's adding a whole nother stress level to something that, like you said, was designed to help him relax, get rid of his stress. Now we're making it not something he wants to do. It's something that if he wants to promote, he has to go against maybe his comfort zone, maybe not his original goal. I'm not the person to choose those goals for him. He's the person that has to choose those goals for him.
I read an article. It was at least a couple of years ago at this point, where it was Hickson even talking about black belts and who gets a black belt. Oh shit! On side note, Chris just texted me. Still fucking on scene. Big natural gas leak out of a furnace in a restaurant basement with no windows. Tell them I'm sorry.
Chris,
So Chris isn't going to be joining us for either of our podcasts today, I don't
God,
think.
Chris, if you're listening to this, I was kind of excited about this because you're an Army guy too, and I wanted to talk about because I heard the king shit on Turd Mountain, and it brought back some warm feelings.
I'm glad that one person understood that reference.
I was so happy. I was like pulled into my parking spot. I'm like, king shit on Turd Mountain. That's fucking awesome. So
You know what that means? It means I'm going to come on here for the fourth time.
that's right. We have to have you 4 times now, the reigning
Just
champ.
so we can get this on.
Yeah.
Oh, so Hickson.
Yeah.
So supposedly there was this belt ceremony, and this I think this guy was getting I think there was a bunch of people getting their black belts, and I don't remember what it was, if Hickson overheard it or someone actually had the audacity to ask Hickson why is he getting a black belt. It's like, I'm gonna fucking ask him, like, he knows. But somebody asked the question. It's basically like, it's like this 60-year-old guy or whatever got his black belt, and it was I think it was some brash younger purple belt or something. He's like, I beat that guy all the time, why is he getting a black belt and I'm still a purple belt, something like that. Nixon's answer is, he says, it's not the same thing. He says, this guy's been dedicating his life to jiu-jitsu for 15 years. He's learned the technique. He comes in here regularly. He doesn't compete because he can't compete. Like, either he doesn't want to, or his body is like, his injuries and stuff like that. And I understand at this point in his life, Hickson's a lot more understanding of injuries because he's got so many fucking back problems. But he's like, nobody's ever going to call into question his capacity to be a black belt in a tournament. Like, he knows the technique. He has the knowledge. He has the capacity to teach the knowledge, and he has the dedication to the art. Like, it's not the same thing as some competitor who comes through in a whirlwind, who's racking up medals and everything else, because the competition scene is so different. Like, you see these guys, sure, someone like Kyotera or someone can get their black belt in 4 years and be successful, but there's going to be a lot of guys that, the way competition is guys that compete, it takes them a long fucking time to get belts. Like, for the most part, I remember like the Meows and Keenan and stuff. Like, how many fucking tournaments did they need to win at brown belt before they finally got their black belts? It was like, the fuck did they need to prove? But it's just this different standard. Like, there is no, because we can't have standards in jiu-jitsu, that it makes the sport more complicated, and it does add a different level. I don't know if unease is the right word, but it's an instability because there is no constant. It's not karate. It's not, you learn this kata or whatever it is, you get your black belt. Because, and I say this over and over, and I think I even said this on the last podcast, but jiu-jitsu, me being able to do an armbar on some guy on the street in one of these fucking street fight videos, that's not me knowing jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is the application of the art against a learned opponent. Me being able to do an armbar against another brown belt, I know how to fucking do an armbar then. Me being able to choke out another brown belt, it means I know how to do a fucking choke. Me choking out some jackass on the street who's never fought in his life or never stepped on the mat or in the ring, that's not me knowing jiu-jitsu. That's just me knowing how to do a chokehold. Like, and we've all been there. We've been on the mat where you're somewhere, and all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh. Like, you see it coming. You feel it coming, and you can't move. Because, if you move, you're going to get swept. It's going to end up something worse. And they are just enforcing their will at that moment, and you can't do a goddamn thing about it. That's jiu-jitsu. Doing what you want to do, and they can't do anything about it. Like, against a learned opponent. I know what an armbar is. I get armbarred. I know what a triangle is. I get triangled. I know what an ankle lock is. I get ankle locked. Because people are applying the art against a learned opponent. If you're not applying the art, what the fuck are we doing? Like, we're literally paying to masturbate. Like, I don't want to pay to masturbate.
No, man, I do that shit for free, man. Fuck that.
So it's just one of those. It's just kind of a weird thing. So we just kind of have to deal with the whole promotions. It's what's it take to get a stripe. Some places don't do stripes at all. Like, I didn't have a stripe on my white belt. Like, because I came from a school that didn't do stripes. I never thought about it. I see people on Instagram and stuff posting about their first stripe, and it's so confusing to me. Like I couldn't care less about stripes. I wish I never got stripes because especially at tournaments, that's a weird thing. You see a no stripe standing in first place and a four stripe in third place. That guy in third place feels a lot of doubt about himself, and that's fucking with his mind, and it shouldn't. Like, and people are judging.
Um, no, yeah, the whole belt thing is weird. I want to chime in that a little bit earlier. If you really like break it down simply, because you said something kind of stimulated a thought in my head. I and this happens. I'll go home sometimes, and on my way back, I'm like, after the gym, I'm like, those belts don't even matter. Like you're just really rolling with somebody, right? It's not. It doesn't. You're really just grappling or wrestling with somebody. It doesn't really mean anything, but sometimes it gives people like a, I don't know, like this either false sense of security or this false sense of confidence, or they get scared of looking at somebody because like, oh well, they're a brown belt, I'm like purple or a blue or whatever. And the same thing with the stripes. Like it is funny that like there is no standard, but the second someone sees it, it sets off a million alarms in their head or a million like little like bombs saying like, oh, I'm gonna go eat this person, I'm gonna go destroy them because they have you know whatever belt or X amount of stripes.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've actually fallen victim to that. Not like in the I guess, oh my god, he's got two stripes. So I showed up to a class out here and there was a brown belt on the mat, and he asked me to roll with him, and I was like, all right, man, time to turn this shit up real high because he's a brown belt. I got to really take it to him, and I beat the shit out of him. Like it was. I was like, holy shit, I can at will just tap this brown belt. This is so fucking cool. Like, I am getting better. He gave me that like. I was like, dude, I'm fucking awesome. I'm gonna go to Pan Am's this year and clean up. And the guy's like, yeah, I'm just borrowing this belt because we don't have a white belt for me. I'm like, oh fuck. I was like, dude. Yeah, I went home, told my wife. She's like, yeah, what are you gonna do, right?
I was I know I've told this story before too, but I had the short version of it was is I went to an open gym at another gym, and I knew most of the upper belts. I was a purple belt at the time, but my belt was in my wife's car, and the only belt I had around, I grabbed like a white belt that came with a gi, so it was literally a fresh white belt. And I went into roll, and I got and the only guy that was open was a white belt, and I was like, okay. And in my head, I'm thinking, should I tell him I'm a purple belt and like a 4-year purple belt at that point? And I was like, nah, fuck it, just roll. Because it doesn't matter. Like he'll just roll and it'll be what it is. And I tell you what, the second he started getting into it, he was like a two-stripe white belt. The second he started getting into a bad position against a no-stripe white belt, he fucking turned it on like I've never seen anyone in an open roll before. Like he was so like, I can't let this happen. This guy doesn't have any stripes. He's sweeping me, and afterwards, he was just like, yeah, you got a really good base, man. You got strong. And I was just like, I was just like, thanks. And but it was like, do I need to say in advance I'm a purple belt? Because the thing was, is if I had worn my purple belt against him, would he have even rolled the same? Like, would he have conceded positions and sweeps and things like that, or would he have actually tried to come at me and give it what he's got? And people see a belt and they just fucking shrivel. I remember the first time I rolled with an instructor and I almost caught him in a submission. I felt like I was beating my dad at one-on-one, where all of a sudden I was like, I practically like basically like released the choke, where I was like, I'm not supposed to do this. Like he's a higher belt than me. I'm not supposed to do this. Whereas now it's like, fuck, I want to tap him as much as I can
Yeah.
possibly try to go as hard as I fucking can. Fuck you, black belt. And belts, they just mess with people's minds. Like it was like 2-3 weeks ago. Like I've finally been kind of getting into stride, minus this last week of stomach flu of training again. And I was rolling with this kid, and this really really talented kid. He ended up winning blue belt gold at Nogi Pans last year, and he really good berimbolo. That just really sport type stuff. Just but really slick, and he hit a beautiful berimbolo on me. I saw it coming, didn't stop at me because I didn't think I needed to. Whatever. All of a sudden, he's on my back and he's working a collar choke, and I was like, motherfucker, like he's got this, but he's got it for real. And I ended up tapping out, and I tapped out to a blue belt, and I was like, afterwards, I was like, fuck, it was just good technique. Like, did I want to roll harder against him next time? fuck yeah, I did. But it doesn't change the fact that he did everything right. He did everything that he was supposed to do. And some people might see a brown belt tapping out to a blue belt and get all confused about what's going on. Or that same or brown belt might be like, what am I supposed to do with my life now that I've tapped out to a blue belt? But fucking shit happens, man. There was a there was a story of a guy who came through, and this kid, it was like a, I think he was like a blue belt, and he was smoking everybody. He was from Brazil. He was on his way through. He was like a testing assistant. He was coming through with someone else for a seminar. He was his, I know there's a word for it, whatever, his assistant. And he was rolling against all the purples and brown belts in the gym, and he was smoking every single one of them. His spider guard, they couldn't do anything about it. He was sweeping, submitting them every single time. It's just this blue belt kid. And afterwards, like all these dejected faces of, what are we even doing? Like this kid, this is a blue belt from Brazil. We've got not like this is work, like this is a joke. Like that, like you're reevaluating your entire life choices at that point. How much have I spent on dues and competitions? Fuck you, Minnesota Jiu-Jitsu at this point. And then they find out that the kid had been a Brazilian national wrestling champion. He'd been a blue belt for 6 years. Like he had basically been being groomed to win, like worlds and pans and everything else, but he just hadn't been able to compete because he was down in Brazil. Like he had been held back, so he had more mat time than any of them combined. But they saw the belt, and it almost fucking crushed them. Like if they had never found out, like there are people that it could change their entire outlook on jujitsu because of a belt, something that you have no idea. We don't have hash marks on our belt for how many years we've been doing this. We have stripes, which are theoretical. They mean as much as an advantage point does in real life. It's someone's opinion of something. It doesn't mean anything.
So, dude, perfect example is we were in a tournament, and it was some tournament. I think it was like the U.S. Open, right? We're in the Bay Area, and I have a buddy who was competing, and he was a big dude. He's like 235 purple belt, right? He's from Brazil, and then I'm not gonna say the name of this guy, but I will say he's a black belt world champion. He's about 130 pounds. I'm not gonna say what years he's won. Okay. And so what happened was my friend went against one of his students, and they ended up, who happened to be another Brazilian. So they're arguing and stuff after the match. They're kind of getting to it. Stuff's kind of getting hot and whatever. Anyways, my friend goes to the back to the fence, and this world champion, this guy who's 135 pounds, comes up to my friend who is 100 pounds heavier than him, right? And they're arguing in Portuguese, and I swear everyone in the arena is looking at this like, but the funny thing is that when you listen to people around me talk, there's people pretty much saying, in other words, man, that purple belt better be careful. But I'm like, what the fuck? It's 100 pounds heavier. Just because he has a black belt and he's a jiu-jitsu world champion, you really think that in this situation, reality, that's going to help him right now? It's ridiculous.
I know jiu-jitsu is just fucking weird. Like, and we're all weird for I mean, we're on the fringe of fringe sports. Like rock climbing is normal compared to what we do, and those are motherfuckers who are climbing. There are people who climb 500-foot cliffs without a rope, and there are more people that would embrace. Oh, that makes sense. Like as opposed to jujitsu, like you just roll around on the floor with guys, and that little dude does some stuff. Oh, is that UFC that you do?
Yep, sure is.
My grandma thinks it's karate. My grandpa thinks it's WWE. I don't know why. I never talked to him about it, but they seem to keep thinking that's what it is. Like it's just we do this because we love it, because there's something weird in us that connects with it. That maybe we're missing something, maybe we have too much of something, but we're all just weird enough to want to do it. Like there's no one who goes in there where I've met people who I would consider normal, quote unquote, but there's no one who, if I sat down and actually talked to them for an hour at a bar, where I'd be like, I don't understand why you do jujitsu. Every single person within like an hour and a few beers, you're like, oh, I get it. I see exactly why you do jujitsu. Like it's jujitsu is our personality flaw. It's just exposed, and we pay dues to do it.
Yeah, it's a good point. And with that, we've hit our time limit. So I think I forgot to mention at the beginning that we were actually doing a two-parter here because we love Jiujitsu After Dark, and hopefully they, feel the same way about it. They might mildly like us, but we're doing a two-parter. So we're going to continue this conversation on the Jiu-Jitsu After Dark podcast. So if we had to go find it, where would we find it, John?
Well, you can find it, as far as I know, you can find it on iTunes and Stitcher or at jiujitsuafterdark.com. I think jiujitsuafterdark.com. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That sounds about right. Or on Facebook. We seem to have the biggest presence on Instagram, though I assume nobody on Instagram knows that we're actually a podcast. But then the best news, Chris texted me, said he's on the way back right now.
Oh, fuck yeah!
So Chris will actually be ideally available for at least some of our podcast. And our podcast, I know you guys post yours really fucking fast, but our end of the podcast, which we're going to record immediately after this, I'll probably post either on Monday or Tuesday.
Nothing wrong with that. So, hey, that's why it's a good thing it's the second part, right? Because I have no life and I just edit podcasts, right? So, Devin, real quick, anything for the loyal listeners?
Hold on, give it 2 minutes. Chris is going to log in just to say hi before we say goodbye.
Oh, hell yeah, there we go.
He just got back. He's going to log in. So all your listeners will at least have a voice to associate with the voice that they'll have to listen to on our podcast.
Oh, that's exciting. And then also that gives me some time to refill my drink. So I'll go ahead and do the housekeeping stuff while Chris is logging in. So don't forget, we're a member of the Pod Bros Podcast Network. Go to podbros.com and pick another podcast you might like. But remember, ours is the best. And don't forget to go to bigjujitsu.com. Save me from a divorce by buying a t-shirt and patches. And if you're going to buy something from Amazon, because I know you really are, and I don't give a shit what you buy. Just buy it through the banner. And we'll get a little kickback. You won't have to pay anything extra. And I really won't look through like your cart to see what you bought. So if it's like, I don't know, weird sex swing or whatever the fuck it is, go for it. I won't judge you.
On that note, hey Chris.
Oh, he's fucking muted. God damn it.
Unmute yourself, dude. There's Chris.
Hooray, it's Chris.
All right, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
All right, now you're just in time to say goodbye.
Oh, goodbye. I'm sorry I missed everything.
Yeah, say we'll see you over on Jiu-Jitsu After Dark in a couple of days.
Hey, we'll see you at Jiu-Jitsu. What's that podcast called?
Our podcast. Okay, you'll see us on our podcast.
Not familiar. Probably sucks.
We do a podcast?
I thought we just fucking hung out. I'm sorry, can you swear on your podcast? Because I totally
Fuck yeah, you can.
Sweet.
Say something offensive to the listeners, please.
Oh, I actually came up with a crap, now it's slipping my mind. I came up with a new national holiday I wanted to start.
Okay.
It's called Celebracist. It's a day where everybody can be as racist as you want to be and nobody can get mad about it. Just 24 hours. Celebracist.
Outstanding. So there we lost our Pod Bros Podcast Network endorsement. But that's cool. I like it. It's funny.
You asked me to say something racist.
I said offensive, not racist. Oh, fuck it. Whatever, man.
Same thing.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Rob the Lord Humongous, and we will see you on part 2 next time.